Good evening. I pray everybody is well on this Wednesday evening. We are coming to you via live stream from the Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church in Tony, Alabama. Welcome everybody that is on their way to the sanctuary, those of you viewing on the live stream, those of you viewing on YouTube, as well as Facebook, and listening on the phone lines. I'm just making sure everything is going properly. Let's enter in with a word of prayer. Most gracious and ever-loving Father, Lord, I thank you one more time for allowing me the opportunity to stand and proclaim your word through the teach lesson, Lord God. I thank you for the opportunity that the pastor of this house of worship has given me to do this, and I pray that I honor you in doing so, as well as the angel of this house, oh God. I pray that going through this lesson that understanding is gained, and that bonds are barriers and bonds are broken, oh God, and would free people, Lord, from anything hindering them from moving towards you in spirit and in truth. In Jesus' name I pray it all. Amen. Okay, well, tonight's lesson is coming from the book of Ruth. If you have been following Pastor's remind texts that he's been sending out, he's sent out the study of Ruth. And so that is what we're going to go through this evening. As you're coming in, you'll see I have lessons in different places. Just grab you one for the overview. But we're going to be going through Ruth just to explore it, talk about it a little bit, and just to see what was the uniqueness of this individual, because there are only two books in the Bible named for a woman. That's Esther and Ruth. And let's see what this individual's contribution to our scriptures was. Before I go into the main points, I want to give a little synopsis of some of the things that were going on here, talking about one of the key characters. Now, the book is named Ruth, but one of the main character initially is Naomi, and so I want to talk to you a little bit about Naomi. Naomi, she went away from her homeland with all these dreams. The dreams of a woman in that time, things that she felt would make her honorable, things that would make her a worthy woman. She went away with dreams, but she returned with some might say a nightmare. I mean, she left her hometown with a husband. She had two sons. She left with those two sons, but she returned childless and a widow. Come on in, sister. Just grab you a outline from any of the locations that I have them posted. And she left with hope, because they left for a reason. They left their homeland for a reason. She left with hope, but she would return in despair. And she was Naomi. This is who Naomi was. Naomi moved to Moab 10 years earlier. Like I said, she moved with her husband and her two sons. And she moved so that they could escape famine in Judah. And they bought a piece of land and started a life in this new country. But then Elimelech, that was Naomi's husband, he died. And she was left with only her two sons. So now she's a widow, but she still has these two sons to protect her, to care for her. Then these sons eventually met and married two young ladies. So even though she was a widow, she had her sons. Her sons had married. So now, in her mind, or I guess it's a normal progressive thought, when your children grow up and get married, you're focusing on when are the grandkids coming. So she's thinking about, dreams of grandchildren. This is gonna, even though it's start off kind of rocky, it's gonna be better. And she got along well with her daughter-in-laws, and that's always a blessing from a son's perspective. When your mother and your wife get along, that makes things a whole lot easier. It makes things very smooth. Um, and so they worked the land, and they experienced God's blessings in their lives. Still no grandchildren, but life was good. But then in a short time, Naomi is going to another funeral. One of her sons dies. And then on top of that, the knockout punch comes when the next son dies. So everything was looking up, and then all of a sudden, a U-turn, a downward spiral, whatever you want to call it, happens. Life happens. Life happens. And in that, she lost it all. She lost it all. So now Naomi is a widow. She's mourned for her husband. She's mourned for both her sons. But then you look at her heart, you see her also mourning for herself and her daughters-in-law because of everything that had gone on. So now you got these three women, all of them widows. And they were in a tight, this was not 2023, They couldn't go out and get a job or, make purchases and all that kind of stuff. This was a time when women were considered second-class citizens. And even in that region today, the women struggle to be considered equal. They had a tough life. But these widows had an extra burden because Ruth and Orpah, those were the daughters-in-law, they were Moabite women. That's right. And Naomi was from Judah. There's a problem right there. If you know a little bit about the Old Testament, you know that wasn't going to wash. Naomi was living in a foreign country at this point because remember I told you they left Judah because of the famine. So she's living in a foreign country, but you know what? She says, I'm going to head on back home because she needed to get back to her extended family there. As miserable as it would have been for Naomi to live as a widow in Judah, it would have been better than staying in Moab. So the choice was clear for Naomi. Girl, you got to go home. That's right. Ruth and Orpah, they had two options. They could stay in Moab, or they could go to Israel. They decided to go with Naomi. Naomi knew the consequences of both options. She knew that her foreign widowed daughters-in-law would be despised in Judah because of where they came from. As they walked along the road, Naomi began to start to urge them to stay where they were. Y'all need to stay here and, find y'all some nice young Moab dudes and, have some children and be happy. Go on with your life. But Naomi was so certain that this was the right decision, she just kissed them goodbye. Just say, y'all go ahead on. And I'm sure it was very painful because earlier, I said they had a very good relationship. And it wasn't like they had just met. 10 years is a long time to spend with anybody. I mean, you build relationships, you know mannerisms, you know all kind of stuff about each other. Orpah had, I guess she thought about it one more time, and she decided, you know what? I'm going to head on home. I'm going to take you up on it. I told you I was going to stay. But now you telling me, you know, now if you really want to go, you can go ahead and go. Hey, I'm a lead in. I'm going to take my cue. I'm going to go. And that's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, because she genuinely offered to stay, and she would have stayed. But Naomi insisted, and so okay, since you insist, I'm gonna leave. But then there's Ruth. She, for some reason, she held on to Naomi. She even begged to stay with her. So here they come, falling into Bethlehem. They were tired. I mean, two women, one old, one young. You know, they went on this long journey. It's no telling how long it took them to get there. What did they have? Because I mean, if they own their land, that means they had some things that they had to move along with them. So they probably fell into Bethlehem. It's a joke. We have a joke in our house that I haven't given up the idea. I think I'm gonna buy one more sports car. And my wife always said, well, how low is this one gonna be? She said eventually I'm just gonna be rolling. When I pull up somewhere, you're gonna get out and I'm gonna roll out on the ground. So I can just imagine, these tires where they just roll in the gate of Bethlehem. But then they see the women of the city. And they run up to her because she was familiar to them. And they're like, Naomi, girl, is that you? Where you been? What's happening? And she was like, but her whole countenance was bitter, had changed. She was tired. She was defeated. Her and her young foreign daughter-in-law. And she said, it was like it was straight from the hip. She said, don't call me Naomi. Call me Mara. Because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. We'll talk about that a little more a little later on. Naomi had good theology. She knew who the Lord was. I mean, just previously, I just said, she said, the Almighty has made my life very bitter. So Naomi had a good theology. She believed the circumstances and events in her life that they were connected by God. Somehow. She might not have been able to put a finger on it, but she knew that this was in some way by God's design. We don't know why God allows bad things to happen then. We don't know why they're allowed to happen now. Any one of us right now can rattle off some struggle or strain that is either affecting you, your household, a family member, friends, something going on at work. You don't know. But I would wager money that I don't even have that every one of us can name somebody going through something right now. Right now. The reality is not unique to Naomi. Bitter realities have always brought pain and misery. But the important thing is not to miss how she responded to that pain and misery. And that has a lot that can speak to us in a way as well. How do we respond to pain and misery? I mean, what do? Do we shut down? Do we take pity on ourselves? Do we, I don't know, take it out on other people? You know, what's that saying? Hurt people, hurt people. That's a very true statement. Hurt people do hurt people because they don't know how to either release it in a healthy way, or they hold on to things until it just blows up. Um, and a main thing is grief. Um, people don't really allow themselves to, a lot of people don't allow themselves to grieve properly because of pride or whatever. You think you're not supposed to, or you think you're doing that. You're doing that dead person a favor by not releasing. But it doesn't help. It's not healthy. But and she didn't blame anybody else. If you had just done this, this wouldn't happen to me. Or maybe if they hadn't done that, this wouldn't have happened to me. She didn't drive. She didn't whine. She didn't run people away. Like when she came back, the ladies that remembered her, she didn't shoo them away. She talked to them. She did tell them that her name had changed, but it wasn't oh, woe is me. She just made a statement. She was very matter of fact. And it was no vindictiveness, and it wasn't reproachful. And so it was the way she responded to this bitterness of her life that generated how Ruth became loyal to her. So it was Naomi's consistent example that led or moved Ruth to want to stay with her. So you can ask yourself, what do I put off? Do I carry myself in a way that would make someone want to remain with me because of what they're learning about God, about relationship with the Father in heaven? She said at one point in the text, she says, your God will be my God. And she had every reason in the world to leave, but it was something about Naomi's example, that led Ruth to stay. I'm staying with you. I'm staying with you. Instead of facing any danger because of her being a foreigner, she would rather face that danger than leave Naomi, who she knew trusted God. And that's just a snippet about who Naomi was. But our overview for this evening, you'll hear some of this again, but I'm going to talk about the background. So in chapter 1, we find the family, and this is set during the time of Judges, okay? Judges was a very dark time. A lot of judging, a lot of things going on. But now we see this man by the name of Elimelech. I hope I'm saying that right. Elimelech, who is from Bethlehem of Judah. And he's married to a woman named Naomi. They have those two sons. The sons' names are Mahlon and Chilion. And due to famine in the land, this is why the family moved to Moab. Okay? The sons married wives from Moab, and their wives are named Orpah and Ruth. You'll find that in verses 1 through 3. While they were in Moab, Elimelech and his two sons died. Naomi heard that the Lord had come to the aid of his people by providing food back in her hometown. So that's why That's really the main reason why she was like, we need to head back to where we came from, because, I mean, over here, we doing a little more work than we have to. God is providing for us there. Let's go back there. I still got some people. We'll be fine. And so they wanted to leave. Now, right there, she knows God is a provider. So she's modeling the fact that, okay, God is providing this. Let's follow his provision. And that's very important, because otherwise they would have just been some widows wandering around the streets of Moab. But then we see that Naomi tries to persuade her daughters-in-law to go back to their own people in Moab. And you'll find that in verses 8 through 14. And Orpah kisses her mother-in-law and she leaves, but Ruth clings to the mother-in-law. Ruth tells her mother-in-law, "Do not press me to leave you, to turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord do thus to me, and more as well, if even death parts me from you." She was devoted to this woman. That's family. She was devoted to this woman. So Naomi and Ruth returned to Bethlehem of Judah. And the Jewish women are happy to see Naomi. Naomi tells them not to call her Naomi. The name Naomi means pleasant. But call me Mara, which means bitter. Naomi believes that this bitterness was caused by the Lord. Again, verses 19 through 22. Naomi said that when she left, she was full, but now that she has returned, she is empty. She left full, but has returned empty. Can anyone describe the emptiness that she's talking about, or that you think she's talking about? Put it in perspective. Anyone?
Well, when she left, she had a husband, and then she comes back. All she has is some property. The husband is, and at that particular time, you needed a husband or sons or somebody to work the property, provide so that you could have food or whatever. But she's coming back now. She just has a daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
And this is a daughter-in-law, not a son-in-law.
Correct.
And so therefore she's feeling like, what do I have?
Right.
I don't have that protection. I don't have that overseer that will take care of me. So I'm just kind of out here now by myself. But God.
But God. But God. Anybody else want to share a perspective on the emptiness that she felt? Another area is also that looking forward in her life into where she is now as an elderly woman, she has no grandchildren. She has nobody to impress her knowledge upon, her guidance, or her love. It's something about the love of a grandmother. It's just something about a love of a grandmother. If you were able to experience your grandmother and those moments, I mean, I was fortunate enough to be very close to both my grandmothers. And I was there with them, both of them, visiting them to the very end. And I have special moments with one and the other. And I cherish those memories. And I just, I understand what she means, the emptiness. Because she left with such hope and promise. But life happens. So when they got back to Judah, This is where favor comes in. So Naomi found out that a close relative of her deceased husband was a prominent man in Judah. He was a prominent man. He had some stuff. He had acquired some things. His name was Boaz. Now, according to the custom of law, the poor were allowed to glean the barley and wheat fields after the main reapers had gone through. Okay? Basically, they could go through and pick up the scraps. As long as it was okay with the landowner, they could go through and glean something for themselves. And so God set it up behind the scenes so that Ruth would be able to go and glean in a field that was owned by Boaz. God, he just sets this stuff, after all of that, he's still providing. He's still providing. After all that, after all the tragedy, after all the loss, after all the misery, the pain, he's still planning something for her behind the scenes. Yeah. And for anybody, I know I talk a lot about the military, but hey, I did it for 20 years, so that's a large part. That's a part of who I am. This is real. Okay? This is real. How they treat their women is, to this day, I have seen this. I have seen this as a grown man. I have seen how women are treated in the Middle East. Yeah. I heard about it too before getting there. Seeing it is totally different. Because as a man, as an American man, you want to say something sometimes. You want to say something. But that's not your place. And it is, I just say that is a different world. I just leave that there. But that is a different world. So anyway, back to this relative, right? So his name was Boaz. And Boaz is an upright man, okay? So let's see, where are we? This is verse 4. Let's check him out. I just want to read some of this passage. I'm starting at verse 4 in chapter 2. I just want to read this to give you some perspective on him. It says, just then Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted the harvesters. The Lord be with you. Okay, so this is the owner of now let me tell you something else about Middle Eastern people with money. They don't fool with the help. They don't fool with the help too tough. They treat them bad. They treat them bad. They talk down to them. And, yeah, they treat them bad. But this gentleman, this man, he's greeting his harvesters. The Lord be with you. Not only does he say, hey, how y'all doing, but he gives them a greeting based on the Lord. The Lord be with you. And then they call back, the Lord bless you. So it says, this is another thing that shows me. It shows me that he's treating them in a respectful way, and it seems like they enjoy working for him. They might be laborers in the field, but he's providing in a kind and caring way. So Boaz asks the foreman of his harvesters, whose young woman is that? The foreman replied, she is the Moabitess who came back from Moab with Naomi. So let's put this into a cultural perspective. Hey man, who is that? Who is that y'all got out here in my field? What's up with that? Oh man, look, man, she came back. She came back with Naomi. She with Naomi. She a Moabitess, but she came back with Naomi. For real? Yeah. So she came back and she asked, please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the harvesters. She went into the field and has worked steadily from morning to now, except for a short rest period in the shelter. I want y'all to check something out right here. She's from Moab, but she is keenly aware of the rules and traditions of Judah, of the gleaning. So, she doesn't come in saying, I don't do that. I walk through these fields and take what I want or whatever. I'm not from here. I can do what I want or will. No, she's respectful to their culture and their customs. She asks permission and she does exactly as she's instructed to do. Doesn't take any more or any less. And then she shows them that she's willing to work for hers. She's not pulling the I don't know how to do this, can you help me card? Or she's out there doing her own thing, doing her own work and being recognized for it. So Ruth falls. So Boaz told Ruth, he goes up to Ruth and talks to her, and now this is where I guess the I say and I'm being comical, but this is where the player come out, because he said, hey girl, don't be going to no other fields. You come work in this field, and I'll make sure everything's taken care of. He's setting it out for her. He's making sure that she is taken care of, because it's obvious that there is an interest there. But he's not disrespectful in his approach, but he is welcoming and kind in his approach to let her know that he will take care of her if there is a need that she has. So she falls to the ground and she thanks Boaz for the favor that he has shown her. And Boaz responds by telling Ruth that her kindness to her mother-in-law. Now, how did he know that, though? You see what I'm saying? But you can see these little nuggets in here? That street committee is something else, ain't it? That you can find out a whole lot from that street committee. But your kindness, staying with your mother-in-law, and not going back to your own country has been well spoken of throughout the land. So it ain't just me, girl, they talking about you. They talking about how you move in these circles. You about your business. And Boaz spoke the favor and blessings of the Lord on Ruth. That was in verse 11 and 12. In the meantime, Boaz invited Ruth to eat and drink with him and his reapers. So here again, this man is sitting down breaking bread with his laborers. Once again, folks, they don't do that in the Middle East. They don't do that. And see, there's wasn't too long ago that it wasn't done with the African American population and those people that we worked for. They didn't break bread in our presence either. Those of our forefathers and relatives that had to experience that. Boaz instructed his young men to watch over and be kind to Ruth. So what he did was, he was like, look here, man, why don't y'all throw some extra stuff out there for her to pick up? Don't throw and don't just leave the scrap. Throw some full stocks out there. Let her fill up her bag. Make sure when she leave here, she has grain. She has enough that she can, sustain. We good. We gonna be all right. But y'all make sure y'all take care of her on this end, and I'll take care of y'all on the other end. That's how it's done. I had to cut a little deal like that at work today, but I'll leave that alone. I'll talk about that offline. But, and then when Ruth got home, she told Naomi all about how good of a day she had. You know, everything that happened. That she even shared bread with the family, you know. And Naomi said, "Blessed be he by the Lord, whose kindness has not forsaken the living or the dead." Blessed be he by the Lord, or blessed be he by the Lord, whose kindness has not forsaken the living or the dead. What is he saying? What is he saying? What is she saying right there? That blessing that she gives. What is she saying? Anybody? She's saying that she blesses him, blessed be him by the Lord, because his kindness hasn't forsaken them because they're still living, and his relative, the dead husband.
That's right.
He's honoring the dead husband by the kindness that he's showing to us. So Lord, bless him, because he's doing things that he doesn't even have to do. Let's see, do we have a question? I don't want to ask those just yet. Let's see, chapter 3. So chapter 3 is talking about a worthy woman. So Naomi, who is also working behind the scenes, she has a plan. She's plotting. And she shares the plan with Ruth. So what Naomi does, basically, she tells Ruth, look here, now Boaz is going to be down there separating the wheat tonight. And she said, you need to take them widow clothes off, girl. Fix your hair, go do that makeup. You know, you got to look right tonight. So go take care of yourself and head down to the threshing floor. So Boaz lays down by his wheat pile because he didn't, thieves will be they'll steal it. And then Naomi told Ruth to uncover Boaz's feet and lay down by his feet. And that's in verses 1 through 5. Now, I know that sounds a little odd, and I'm not going to go into any detail here, but I recommend you do your own research on feet and the references in the Bible and what that means, what that is referencing, okay? And Ruth does as she's told. So around midnight, Boaz is startled awake, and he noticed there was a woman at his feet. And Ruth told him that he was her next of kin. And this statement pertained, she was dropping hints. She was letting him know that she was there because of the kinsman redeemer oath in the Mosaic covenant. Okay, here again, she's a foreigner. But she is well versed in the law and the traditions of the Mosaic. The oath simply said that if a husband died, his next of kin would be obligated to marry the widow and have children in honor of the deceased husband. So Boaz blesses Ruth because the kindness that she is displaying here, meaning in this moment, is greater than the kindness that she has already shown earlier. Well, if anybody is lost, the kindness that she displayed earlier was staying with her mother-in-law. So you mean to tell me that not only are you staying with this old woman and you don't have to, that you are living in a foreign land and you don't have to. Not only are you doing that, but you are seeking to fulfill the Mosaic covenant of the kinsman redeemer. You mean you could have any of these young dudes running around here. You're not after wealth. You're not trying to come up or any of that. You just trying to fulfill the kinsman redeemer oath. Man. Once again, you know, he blesses her because of that kindness. Boaz tells Ruth that of all of the assembly of his people, know that she is a worthy woman. Now, in the text, it also goes on to show Boaz honoring her honor. Because, see, you go down to the threshing floor and lay at someone's feet to basically let them know that you were available and that you were interested in them, okay? Because she asks